On this episode, Nolan Clemmons shares his favorite sales and marketing tools.
Welcome to the Growth Marketing Toolbox podcast, presented by Earnworthy, helping you discover the best marketing tools and technology so that you can earn more conversions and grow your business. And now, here's your host, Nicholas Scalise.
Hello and welcome to episode 140 of Growth Marketing Toolbox. I'm your host, Nicholas Scalise, and today I'm joined by Nolan Clemmons. Nolan is the CEO of Clemmons.io, a growth marketing and lead generation agency. He's also an official member of the 2018 Forbes Dallas Business Council, and he's here today to share some of his favorite marketing and sales tools, specifically the tools that make up his unique sales stack. Nolan, thank you so much for joining me on the show. How's everything going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me on. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I think I saw one of your videos on LinkedIn and you were talking about the different tools that you use. And I was like, we have to get you on the podcast. It was just a perfect fit. And so I'm really excited to hear more about the tools that you're specifically using in what you call your sales stack. But before we get into that, can you start just by telling us more about what you do and anything I didn't cover in that intro?
Yeah. So I think that's pretty spot on. And I'm really got started in marketing through startups and a few other projects. And probably my first successful marketing campaign was using a cold email tool called Sales Beach. I found them on AngelList at the time, and they were looking for beta testers. In exchange for me testing it out, I got to use it for free. And this was before, at that time, what I was learning or basically teaching myself how to do was account-based marketing, where you get a list of companies, and I wasn't even putting that list in a spreadsheet. So I was putting it in a document. Then I had to create a spreadsheet, find their emails, get the contact information, load that up, create the email template. And at that time, I'd email people and maybe I'd get a response, maybe I won't, but I was mainly typing them out or just copy and pasting.
Doing it the old-fashioned way.
Yes, and some people probably still do that, a small percentage, I hope, but just the way how it automated that, and then it automated the follow-ups if they didn't respond 2 or 3 days later. And this is pretty standard in tools these days, but 5 years ago it wasn't. So it was amazing that I wouldn't have to, all I'd have to do is monitor the replies of people that are interested. I wasn't worried about anything. And so from then on, I started doing that for clients as a service. And that's kind of how I built my agency. And we're focused on lead generation and marketing automation. And the vast majority of it has been outbound, but I've recently mastered some of the inbound channels, particularly chatbots, because at the end of the day, we're selling for the tactics that I specialize in, it's conversational marketing. If that's a cold email, I'm making the first touch, and there's a couple of things I have to do to make sure it's a good first touch, and then I also follow up and continue through a variety of channels to get that. With inbound or specifically for Facebook Messenger, there's some other tactics as well that can be used to basically automate the initial conversation and guide them through the funnel to various stages of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I want to cover all of those different areas. I want to talk about chatbots, but I guess let's step back for a minute and just look at a broader overview. What is a sales stack? Or really, for any listeners out there who aren't even familiar with maybe the concept of a marketing stack or a tool stack, maybe give us just an overview of what we mean when we say stack, and then broadly speaking, what your sales stack consists of.
Right. So some of the processes that I was talking about earlier, they're distinct from each other in the sense that when you're filling out that spreadsheet, that's known as prospecting, and there's tools and data sets that you can take advantage of, and then there's the messaging, and then there's the CRM. And I'll just start through the top. And at first, it was just daisy chaining these tools together in various processes, and usually you just export a spreadsheet and then import that into this other tool, into the CRM, and then make sure the emails are getting logged. But I recently upgraded it, so you could probably include a link to the graphic so that if people are listening on their computers, they can pull that up. But at the top layer is analytics and sales intelligence, and ideally, most of these are put inside of Google Tag Manager, so that if you're not a developer, you only have to have your developer install one thing on the website, and it's the Google Tag Manager. So Google Analytics, the LinkedIn Insights tag, and you don't need to spend any actual money to get the data once that's on there. And the same thing with the Facebook Pixel, and all three of those can be used for retargeting your website visitors.
Can you tell us, before we go on, can you tell us more about the LinkedIn Insight tag? Because I think a lot of our listeners are familiar with the Facebook Pixel. We hear so much about it. I'm pretty sure, I hope most of our listeners have it installed. But the LinkedIn Insight tag is something that even I'm not that familiar with. Tell us, why is it useful, and like what value does it serve by including it on your web pages?
Well, long story short, it gives you several data views, but one of them is the company name. So if a user is logged into LinkedIn and they visit your website, it will usually pretty accurately tell you what company visited your website, which is the main value. And then another similar tool is called Lead Feeder, and that analyzes the Google Analytics data based on IP address. So those right there, those are two tools that you can use to find out what companies are visiting your website, and in some cases where they came from through Lead Feeder, how much time they spent, because that's Google Analytics will tell you this data. So those are two tools. And then basically, if you're looking at that graphic, the analytics plays into retargeting and also social media ads that go to inbound marketing channels, which can be its own thing. And those eventually come out of the inbound funnel as marketing qualified leads. Moving down the stack goes to research and prospecting, and this can be, a bunch of third-party data sources, industry and trade directories, and essentially you get contact data out of this, and then you go and you combine that data, your prospects, with your marketing qualified leads, and then you start messaging, and that can be, and you can include different steps with this. So, like I said, the running retargeting ads is one. But also LinkedIn viewing their profiles, sending them a connection request with a kind of a short note sometimes helps as well. There are just multiple ways to have a first touch. And then you start a cold email campaign based on that. And ideally you have your prospects segmented so you know information about it. You find social references, and in terms of human processes, this is usually handled by a sales development representative at larger companies.
Yeah, and we will definitely include a link to this this document that you have on your website, or I should say it's more like a flow chart, because it really makes a lot more sense when you see it. And it's always difficult doing these podcast episodes where we really get into these details. And I know how difficult it is for some listeners. You want to visualize it. So all you have to do is go to earnworthy.com/140. That's earnworthy.com/140. And there'll be a link to Nolan's blog post where he covers the sales stack. Tell us more. What else is involved in the stack?
Yeah. So after that, they schedule an appointment typically, or an introductory call. And at that point, depending on how that goes, they become sales qualified. And it's then handed off to an account executive usually, or a closer. And then you begin the deal pipeline and also the CRM. And throughout this whole process, it involves a lot of marketing automation. And I place that into CRM at the bottom of the layer, but that doesn't mean it's the last thing you do. It's you just use the CRM as kind of a command center for what's happening throughout the process. Did this person view your LinkedIn profile? Did they respond to your LinkedIn message? Did they show up in Lead Feeder or something else? And use a variety of direct integrations and Zapier recipes to ensure that they're tagged and segmented properly, because you want as much information on that so you can be accurate with any activities or other automations that you have going on.
Okay. And what CRM do you recommend?
Well, I've used a couple. So Close.io is going to be my favorite B2B inside sales CRM. Has built-in phone and other features. I mean, the biggest CRM is Salesforce, simply because it has its own ecosystem behind it. It has its own app store, so it's going to be hard to find something that doesn't integrate with Salesforce in some way, or some third-party developer has created a solution for you that you can find on their app exchange. So that's why Salesforce. It can be there's a bit of a learning curve.
Oh yeah,
there's
a lot. Yeah, it can be overwhelming. I've tried it. I'm not the Salesforce type. I find it to be way too much for what I need. But then again, for an enterprise company, obviously it's like the place to be.
Exactly. So, and then there's a few others. I'll probably do another. I included some in the sales stack post, but I'll probably just do a separate article of the list of all the CRMs for people to use. Base CRM was another that got acquired by Zendesk, and that was neat because of their mobile app interface, where if you finished a call with a prospect, you could add notes. The app would pop up, you can add notes of that call. I mean, there's apps that automatically record and transcribe, like Fireflies.ai. And that integrates with most CRMs and like Zoom meetings and calls and things like that. And HubSpot is a free CRM, and some of these. Not to pick on HubSpot in particular, but other CRMs do this as well. There's a big confusion between contacts and companies, or leads and companies. And I think what that means is, if you're B2B and you're doing account-based marketing, they need to have the default interface be companies, and then at that company they have various contacts within that. And I think the reason why they have the contacts interface is probably for B2C use cases. So there's going to be some overlap, because you're managing, what interactions have you had with this human, whether that's at a company or an individual level. So there's that. Agile CRM's another, Pipedrive, and there's probably a few others, but that's what the sales stack used to be. It used to be a list of tools, but as I try to be more, I guess, vendor neutral, in that I just worry about the process and the functionality, because some tools will combine several of these layers into one.
Yeah, like I use ActiveCampaign, and ActiveCampaign, it was originally really just an email marketing tool, like a marketing automation tool, but now they have a pretty robust CRM, and it's getting better with each update. It's not perfect yet. I wouldn't say it's as close to like a Pipedrive, which is really good as a standalone CRM, but yeah, there are a lot of tools that are combining and converging both marketing automation, email automation, and then they have that CRM functionality as well.
Exactly. So it can be a bit confusing as you're trying to research which one is good for you, and if you already have some, because a lot of times when I'm working with clients, they may already be using something that I don't know how or why they selected it. Like, let's say Zoho CRM, which is kind of it's all right. I mean, it's a suite. I mean, my criticism was that they have CRM is one thing, campaigns is another thing, and so they have separate apps, and it's hard. And especially if onboarding me particular, it's hard. It's confusing. Okay, and if they're sending cold emails from something that's designed for just regular email marketing like Mailchimp, some people still don't know that. This is not for cold email, and they even warn you, hey, did these contacts opt in?
Yeah. That's a big no-no.
And even for HubSpot, they ask you that, when in reality, I'm just using it so I can keep track of the pipeline. You want to use, now as far as cold email tools, so that first one that I used that doesn't exist anymore, that was called Sales Beach. And what they would do is there's some Caribbean island that got destroyed by a volcano, and so it had its own top-level domain extension that no one's using because it's a deserted island, basically. And so they'd use that to send out the emails, so that your main domain didn't get blacklisted or anything. Now with Google Apps, you just do it directly, and you just be careful about who you make sure your message is relevant, and just monitor your bounce rate and other things like that. So in that suite, there's SendBloom that has a nice interface for separating your campaigns based on segmentation, and just the design of it was nice. I have a lifetime deal for Mailshake, created by Sujin Patel, formerly of Content Marketing or Marketer.io, and he is basically some internal technology that he developed to do content marketing outreach, which is, I mean, the process is similar, and that kind of, it also integrates with Gmail, and it kind of has this Android user interface design. There's a name for it that I can't think of, but it's kind of.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Material design.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of has that.
Yeah, Mailshake is really good. We actually had Sujin on the podcast a couple times. It was a while back though, but we covered an episode on Mailshake. But it is a really solid tool because, I mean, it connects with Gmail. And I think one of the cool features is that it'll stop any automations once someone replies. Because I think one of the annoying things is, we've all gotten like an automated email, like a cold email, and then we reply to it, and then you still get the next email like, "Hey, are you still interested?" And obviously that's a automation issue gone wrong, and so you want to pause that chain right once someone replies.
That's why you focus on CRM, because I mean, and a lot of tools will do reply detection, but what if they replied from a different email address, or if they forward your email to a colleague? But Mailshake allows you to manually pause the recipient or the campaign in case something happens, and that's kind of, it's one of those things. I mean, it's beginners will mess that up a lot, and then some, just for using CRM in general, not to name names or anything, but someone that worked at Salesforce, he is giving this presentation, and he said, sometimes we don't even keep track of, we may be talking to the same account from different people and not know about it, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, things like that will happen. You may have a round of golf with a potential customer, and things are going well, and then in the morning someone sends them an email, "Hey, I'm such and such from this company," and act as though they've never interacted, even though it's different people. So so one of my first clients, he's a sales guy, account executive. He's or outside sales is what they call it oftentimes, but he understands the benefits of lead generation. It's just that they in general just don't have time to either, log each meeting and call in the CRM, or just manage a lot of those things that happen, or for prospecting as well. So that's where inside sales and then prospecting and SDRs step in to make sure some of that's, or sales operations, sales enablement. People are using a lot of different terms where they kind of mean the same thing. And especially at bigger companies, that's true, because each person's wearing only one hat, whereas in like agency and probably startup world, people have to wear several different hats.
What about for a team of one? Is it possible to do all this and to implement your sales stack if you're just one person and you need to handle everything from the prospecting to the cold email outreach to the follow-up to the actual closing? Or do you really think this takes a team to really get the value out of a sales stack like this?
Yeah, I suppose you could. It'd be a lot of work. What I typically recommend is that you utilize virtual assistants as much as possible, and typically, not always, but typically they're located overseas where the cost of living and labor is lower. So there's kind of a arbitrage on that front, and also for time zone. It's usually night when it's day here. So before you go to bed, you just manage, hey, I need you to do this, this, and this. And then you go to bed. And then when you wake up in the morning, they usually have most of that completed. So that's also great. But yeah, particularly for prospecting, because you need humans at some point for quality assurance and accuracy for that, because it's actually going to get somewhat harder to get new data if that doesn't already exist, because of a lot of privacy problems that have happened recently, like GDPR, like the Facebook scandal and things like that. Even though some of that's not necessarily directly related, it kind of complicates things. And so, but yeah, so use a VA wherever possible, and then try to I have a kind of an acronym framework for that is automate, delegate, outsource. So use automation as much as possible for your process. Delegate things that you, or let's say as a CEO, you don't need to personally be doing, and then outsource what nobody on your team needs to do anyway, if there's another company that does just that. So particularly the prospecting can be outsourced for the most part. You need to have analytics set up so you can monitor that, or just at least monitor the CRM and keep track of that. And then like things like appointment scheduling, there's enough tools for that. And then even after the sale is made, after you've closed the deal and they're become a paying customer, there's customer success and onboarding. Like if they've signed up and they're a paying customer, but they haven't done anything after a week, someone needs to send an email, hey, what's going on? Are you having trouble? Things like that. So that each layer can have its own, at least one person doing, and have plenty of things to do if that's all they did.
Absolutely. Wow. So there's a lot of different components and different moving parts and different tools involved in putting together a stack like this. And I can see how it can be overwhelming to sort of connect them together without getting a headache. What recommendations do you have for connecting different tools? And I know you mentioned Zapier. So like what role does that play in helping you pass data and connect these different tools together?
Zapier is one. Another is if this and that. So IFTTT. And what those do is they connect other apps to each other. So an example of an if recipe is when I change my Facebook profile picture, change my Twitter profile picture to that. So you're not having to do that. So because they all have APIs, application programming interfaces, and in layman terms, that's essentially a USB port or a cable to connect them with each other. So you set, like for example, when I get a new sign up on my website through whatever means, that automatically creates a new contact in my CRM, and let's say HubSpot. And then when a new contact is created in HubSpot, or maybe you add a tag to that as well, it's automatically imports them to Mailshake or whatever outbound tool you use, and then they get a message, and that starts that process. And then someone's getting a Slack notification as well, because you want to strike while the iron is hot for a lot of these, because in general, only 3% of people you interact with are ready to buy now. The rest require either through content marketing or just regular follow-up. They need to be nurtured until they're ready to buy. So back to the integration question, some of them do integrate with each other, particularly like Salesforce. Usually most tools will integrate with that because they're the market leader. So, and if they already have that, it's not too much effort to integrate with these other tools. So most of the time you get a spreadsheet, particularly for prospecting, you get a spreadsheet of contact information and you just integrate that into it. And then depending on the CRM, you got to make sure that there's a way that like each email reply is logged. And once there is a reply, either someone manually marks that and moves them to a certain stage in the pipeline, or through whatever, or you automate it so that other things don't happen. So that like you said, they don't keep getting drip campaigns.
Yeah. Now, if you let's say you know the type of person you want to target with your drip campaign, but you just don't know their email address, what tools do you recommend for finding someone's email address?
I've used a wide variety of methods. That's probably one of the things I'm better at than most of the population. But Clearbit is probably the best. They used to have a Google Sheets integration where you just have your list of company URLs in a spreadsheet, and then they had a plugin. They discontinued that for some reason, but like I said, they integrate with Salesforce, so you can usually get that. They also have a Gmail plugin called Clearbit Connect that you get like 100 free credits or so per month. And you also look up by domain. Hunter.io is another tool for finding emails. Find That Lead is another. I made a list. I made a list of the best B2B sales prospecting tools on my blog, and that's starting to show up on page 1 for Google. And I've sort of unwittingly become an influencer for sales technology tools in the sense that companies will contact me asking, hey, we'd like to be listed. And so I'm like, sure, I'll test them out. So I've used a lot of them. Another good resource is Zoom Info, particularly for phone numbers, which, early on I was pretty aggressive. Once you after your first, I don't know, 10, 50, 100 calls, you realize that calling can be actually quite useful, because if people pick up and you manage to talk to them for more than 5 minutes, that's the equivalent to like 3 email replies in terms of rapport. And even face-to-face meetings are are even better than calls if you can make those happen as well. But so those are where how I find people's emails usually. I mean, once you have the domain, you can pretty much figure it out. It depends on what their email system is. Some of that, sometimes they can get it from their LinkedIn profile in some cases, or if you connect with them, then you at least get their personal or whatever email they use to sign up to LinkedIn. So those are a few tools for that.
Yeah, and speaking about LinkedIn, where does that fit in the process? Do you recommend reaching out to someone first on LinkedIn, or do you email them first and then use LinkedIn as more of a secondary follow-up?
You can do either one. I mean, first you would view their profile because and then make sure your tagline, it's pretty descriptive and is kind of marketed to people who check, hey, who's viewed my profile? So things like that. And then I guess you can usually tell if they have a premium account, but if they do, that means they at least take LinkedIn seriously. But yeah, go ahead and send them a connection request with a short. I mean, you only get 300 characters, which isn't that much, but some people have some success with it. The only problem is you can't really automate LinkedIn because it's against the terms of service. And technically, you're not supposed to have someone log in to your LinkedIn account. In which case, or if you could, I'd say have a VA do that for you. So some people, because of that, I tend to use it as a secondary channel, but you can do things in parallel. And this is going to be hard to verbally explain, but you can have a sequence where, okay, so I view their LinkedIn profile, I send them an email, or I run a targeted ad to them as a custom audience in Facebook, Reddit, or Quora, whatever the platform is. And then I send them another follow-up email, I see, did they open the email and not reply, in which case you can call them. So you can, within that sequence, there's 5 different combinations you can do. Maybe you want to do 2 touches on one channel before you do a touch on the next, or just do them sequentially or in parallel, but there's a lot of combinations.
Interesting. And then, I mean, I'm sure we've all received these automated, not automated, but these messages on LinkedIn where people get right to the pitch, or we get an email and we can tell, people just want to sell us something and it just comes off as really spammy. And so that's always been my fear with any type of cold outreach is, you don't want to come off as just another spammer, just, blasting your message out there. So what tips do you have to sort of keep it personal and really add value with this entire process?
Yeah, so you make a very good point. You always want to keep them under the spell that you hand typed the message or did some research into that. And there's an old tool that I would use that I was using for a client called proleads.io. They then changed their name to hexa.ai, and they've since been acquired by Outbound Works. So if you want this functionality, you'd have to go there. But you'd add them on LinkedIn, and it would scan. You had secondary connections to it, and it finds some mutual contacts, and then you go in there and you add a blurb for each mutual contact, and you could weight them based on how well you knew them. So you'd see, but just so you can include this into the messaging template, because that's when Anders, their founder, sent me a message. He said, "Hey Nolan, how are you doing? I see you're into cold email tools like Sales Beach. I see we both know the founder and this person. He's a great person to know." So right off the bat, I know that it sounds as though he's did some research just the way that sentence is structured. And then what really got me is in the PS, he said, and this is, of course, a hand-typed email, or is it? So that, and I screenshot, that's probably the best cold email I ever gotten, or I ever received. So back to the point, it could add those personalizations in there as something you can plug in. And then the other thing is Mailshake will allow you to preview each individual email. So you could manually type 1 or 2 sentences at the top. And my general advice is try to ask questions. So if you're sending a LinkedIn message, ask, do you already use such and such, especially if you already know the answer to it. Or you can even say, or if you do know the answers, because people can tell, like when I entered in HubSpot, it'll tell you, hey, this person's using Google Analytics. They're using WordPress. They're using this. That's pretty easy to tell, just basic things, because a robot will scan the website to find those sort of things. And so I noticed that you're currently doing this, and try to be genuine with that. And earlier, I think the biggest mistake is people aren't doing enough quality assurance in the spreadsheets, because like I mean, my Facebook page, not my profile, but my page is Nolan Clemmons-Clemmons.io. It's the same thing on LinkedIn, although on LinkedIn I could probably just change it to Clemmons.io since it's already on there. But if people say that in an email, it comes off, hey, you didn't figure this out.
Copy and paste, yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll reply back and say, hey, you need to hire me to help things out with it. And, sometimes they don't listen. Because otherwise that'd be a great lead. It's like, hey, if I'm displeased at this, some other people would be displeased as well. So, but yeah, to your point, for the LinkedIn connection request, find some other way to elicit a response, or just mainly make it about mainly make it an open-ended question that doesn't have to do with an appointment. Hey, do you want to hop on a call for this?
Just get them talking, get them responding. Yeah, questions make a lot of sense.
Yes, or ask for their email. That's a useful thing if you really can't find someone's email, which does happen occasionally. Bigger companies, they have that figured out usually. So it really just depends. But yeah, ask a question or ask a point of contact. Who should I contact about marketing software at your company? So. And this is all human. This is all human stuff here. I mean, it's not. I mean, tools can help guide you along the ways, but at the end of the day, you have to make sure. This is where you double check, like your message templates and things like that, to make sure that no errors show up.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know you also mentioned you do some work with chatbots. Tell us how are chatbots changing this entire process, and what are your thoughts on using chatbots as part of this outreach process?
Well, so they would be used as kind of an in-reach. So they're on the inbound side, and they can be for B2B, what you'll probably see is probably a web-based chatbot like Intercom or Drift. And there's a lot of things that you can do with that. There's some real great things you can do because you essentially, I think the future of every business is going to be, because like if you go to a retail location or like a nail salon or a barbershop, there's usually a receptionist when you walk in. And I think a website should be the same way. They should have someone that at least appears to be a human, even if you automate it. And then there's some other B2C use cases, particularly for Facebook Messenger, because that has over 1 billion active or maybe 1.5 billion active users on there. The main thing about it is that you're essentially, for those of you, any sci-fi fans, you're essentially like A Wrinkle in Time. It's a tesseract. You're crossing dimensions, you're folding space, you're skipping steps, because whereas traditionally, let's say I'm running a lead generation ad, find out how 3 top reasons why chatbots are good for your business. Download our free ebook, and you have a learn more one, and they go to your landing page and they fill out a form, which is, the longer that form is, the lower your or the more steps in your funnel, the lower your conversion is. And probably the most egregious example, like if you're a new patient or a new customer at a dentist office, and they give you a paper, like to actually hand write a form, you should never have to do that. Now, I know in medicine and, there's a bunch of privacy rules and stuff, but they should have some kind of app where you just you consent to it, and they already know you're allergic to this medication. You don't have to, and they know in 6th grade you broke your ankle and things like that. So it's kind of weird that they don't have it. But back to Facebook Messenger, so you can tell where people are dropping off in the funnel. The open rates are superior to that of email. You'll get at least 80% open rates usually, and even probably 30 or 40% click-through rate. So in emails, I still think email is probably the most powerful channel. Like if you, especially compared to social media, so you have 100,000 Twitter followers and 100,000 email subscribers. Those email subscribers are going to outperform your Twitter followers nine times out of 10. So if a chatbot can get better open rates than email, then that's a powerful thing. Now, for Facebook Messenger, there are some limitations. They have the 24+1 rule, so you can send as many messages or promotional messages to someone within 24 hours since they've last interacted with your bot. After that, you only get 1 promotional message, and if they don't engage with that, you're limited to subscription messaging, which is mostly just event updates and reminders. So you can't be promotional, but you can kind of be indirect and ask questions. Hey, here's a picture of our latest burger. Does this look good? And I say, yes, it looks okay, great. Here's a coupon, here's an offer.
Oh, because now they've interacted.
Yeah. So you can, once they click on it, they're fair game. And that 24+1 starts over. It's kind of like double dribble or dribbling in basketball. Like you can't double dribble, but you can shoot or pass.
I love all the analogies. Nice. You're mixing in the sci-fi analogies, the sports analogies, but that's terrific. That's actually the best explanation of that rule that I've heard, because I know it seems like these rules are coming up every single week. Facebook is making all these changes with Messenger, and so it's just been really confusing trying to stay up to date. But the way you explained it makes a lot of sense, and it doesn't sound that bad.
Yeah. So I mean, they don't want people to get spam, because then they'll stop checking their notifications or whatever, and they don't necessarily want people sending out messages for free. Although once you have a message subscriber, you have plenty of options. And there's plenty of ways to get subscribers. You can have a plugin on your website that's Facebook Messenger. I'd actually prefer that, because I use some other thing, and they ask me, it'll be some dude from London at 4 a.m. my time, and then he leaves, and hey, who was that? So with Facebook Messenger, you at least get some data, and you can use that as a way to extract or ask for emails and phone numbers as a quick reply based on the email or phone number they have associated with their Facebook account as a button, instead of them having to type that out. And then once you have that, then you can add Zapier triggers and stuff within the application interface. I mean, Facebook's had some problems. I think 6 months ago, I was creating a bot for a restaurant, and then the month afterwards, hey, we have a moratorium on new bots being connected. So we didn't do anything with it, because I didn't want to risk losing the connection and not being able to control it. So there's risks on, just having something that relies on Facebook. There's risks for the various chatbot vendors, because I heard this story. Some dude, he tried logging in to his account, and all his clients' bots, and it said account access denied. Now, he might have been breaking some rules or something, so I don't know so I won't mention any names or anything. Don't want to speculate, but that's a risk. That's something you have to have a contingency plan, and that's why there's several platforms, and you usually have a backup ready to go in case something happens.
Yeah, awesome. Wow, you covered quite a bit. This is awesome. We'll definitely put the links to everything you mentioned in the show notes at earnworthy.com/140. As we wrap up, are there any exciting updates or offers or projects you'd like to share with our listeners? Yeah.
So if you love some of the topics that I covered today, my Facebook group, Growth Architects, has we hit over 1,000 members a month ago, and we keep growing. So just mentioned that you came here for the podcast to be accepted into that. And that's going to be facebook.com/groups/growth architects. And then another recent project I did with Alex Glenn, who runs the marketing automation podcast, is automated.af. And that's a marketing automation marketplace that showcases experts such as myself. We have automate, like if you wanted the intercom thing that I mentioned, you can go there and you can buy it. It's basically, you're buying a consultation and a few other things, and he'll have the link to that for the sales stack, and then I'll get one up for the Facebook Messenger chatbots as well. And then so my blog is clemmons.io, and then my email is just nolan@clemmons.io, and Clemmons_IO is like my Twitter and Instagram. My LinkedIn's Nolan Clemmons, and there's my Facebook group. So that's plenty of ways to get in touch. And then I have my Facebook page has my bot. I probably need to put some more work on that to showcase all the capabilities it has, but you can test that out as well.
Fantastic. Well, we will put everything in the show notes. And this has been really, really helpful. I have such a list of notes and links and just so many cool things. So definitely all you listeners out there, check out the show notes at earnworthy.com/140 and follow Nolan. He definitely knows his stuff when it comes to this. Nolan, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. It was my pleasure to be on here, Nicholas.
Okay, take care. Well, that's a wrap for episode 140 of Growth Marketing Toolbox. You can get the show notes at earnworthy.com/140, and that's where you'll find links to everything Nolan covered on this episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button in your podcast player so that you do not miss any future episodes. We have new episodes every single week. Thank you again, and until next time, take care.
The Growth Marketing Toolbox podcast is a production of Earnworthy LLC.